Hello, and thank you for joining us. Today, we are joined by the evaluator of the Arts Council of Northern Ireland's Young People and Wellbeing Programme, Ruth Flood of Ruth Flood Associates, which is a Belfast-based research and evaluation company. The Young People and Wellbeing Programme is a lottery-funded programme and was launched in 2023. It was designed to harness the power of the arts and support mental health, emotional resilience, and well-being of young people. We'll be discussing the key findings of the programme's evaluation, looking at the methodology used, outcomes achieved, and some of the main recommendations. Ruth, you are very welcome.
Thanks, Graham. Delighted to be chatting about this.
Maybe to help us set the scene, perhaps you could first describe what were the main aims of the evaluation and the methods you used?
Yes, so in terms of the objectives that we were working to for the evaluation, the first task we had was to really define the program objectives and to establish what we call a logic model. So a logic model is a model that's set out for the program. It looks at the inputs, the elements that are going into the program. It looks at the specific outputs, things like numbers of activities and so on, and then it looks at the outcomes. So really we we were asked to develop that model for the program to start with, and then within that, you then move on to look at ways of measuring those outcomes that can be applied across the participating organisations, really with an aim of ensuring that you're capturing the learning in order to improve the programme over time, but also to be able to communicate the value of the programme and the impact of the programme to participants, but also to wider stakeholders. And we were commissioned to do that logic model and reporting in year one, and then also to report on the programme in year two. So to see how that logic model had worked and applied across year one and year two. So those were the objectives. In terms of the methods that we applied to deliver that, I guess the first thing we did was a review of the programme materials. The programme was actually up and running when we were appointed, so we reviewed all of the programme materials. We had a detailed discussion with the Arts Council project team, as you'll recall, Graham. And then we also had a discussion with year one funded projects leads, the leads in the organisations who had achieved funding in that year one. All of that to enable us to develop that logic model. And then having developed the logic model, we tried to create appropriate data collection approaches that were really as efficient as possible for both the Arts Council and for project leads and participants to be able to give their experience of the programme. So what that meant was that we developed an end of project questionnaire, which was to be completed by the funded organisation, and that was delivered via Arts Council software. And then we also developed a young people online survey, which was designed to collect data from the project participants, obviously being very important as far as possible to get some feedback from the participants themselves, and having that combination of material from projects and from participants. And then we also completed 3 detailed in-depth case study interviews with projects to get more of that detailed story from some of the projects. So those were the methods that we applied to achieve the objective set for us.
And based on that mixed method approach, what were the main outcomes you observed?
Well, within the logic model, there were 9 outcome areas. So there's quite a lot of areas of outcome. In terms of the ones that were achieved the main impact, I'd probably go to looking at the young people data. So within that questionnaire that I've mentioned, young people were asked on what we call a Likert scale, their agreement with statements around outcome areas of the programme. And what we found is that those outcome areas where we saw over 90% agreement from those young people, so this is where 90% of young people agreed, that was in four strong areas. They agreed that they had increased well-being from their participation in the project that they'd been involved with. They agreed that they felt less lonely or less isolated. They agreed that they had increased awareness of the importance of good mental health and increased awareness that it's okay to ask for help. So those are the top four where we saw that 90% agreement, as I said. Maybe to bring that to life a little bit in terms of outcomes, it was really clear in reading the project data in relation to each project how that very wide range of creative activities. So young people are involved in things such as drama, dance, singing, writing, crafting, a whole range of wonderful creative activities, developing skills in a wide range of areas, where those skills and their involvement in that project had helped them to manage personal challenge that they had in whatever area, reduce their stress, just made them have fun and let them enjoy themselves, and really increase their sense of connection, maybe with other people that they hadn't met before, new friends, but also increasing that sense of confidence and self-worth. The case studies and the reports very much included anonymized stories of individuals highlighting the transformative effect of the projects, and particularly for young people maybe facing social isolation or those with special educational needs. Very much we saw stories of them strengthening their self-esteem and their social connection. So anecdotes maybe where young people, when they'd first come to the programme or the project, wouldn't come through the door, and by the end of the project they were involved in the project and engaged in the sessions and having fun and enjoying themselves. So very much information within the reports about that transformative impact, and those outcome areas very much coming to life in terms of stories of that increased well-being, reduction in isolation, increased awareness of the importance of good mental health, and awareness that it's okay to ask for help.
Brilliant, thank you. As an organisation, we're always looking to improve the structure of our funding programs. I wonder what recommendations you would make to strengthen the outcomes and impacts of the programme looking forward.
I think aside from a very obvious one, obviously, would be around funding more of the types of projects and funding those projects to a larger scale. It was very clear that the projects we were working with were achieving a lot within a relatively limited budget, and were also levering in other funding from other organisations and had resources and manpower within their organisation that was achieved through other funding. So aside from, I guess, expanding the project by it having more money and more resources, I think there's a couple of areas that it might be interesting to look at. The project reach, for example, with boys and young men and older teenagers, that was very much an area where there was a bit more of a gap. Interestingly, that is an area that we've reflected on with organisations post the completion of our report. Organisations were very much aware that those groups are hard to engage with, and they were very keen to learn from one another how to do that better, how to reach these groups maybe in a way that they haven't been. So that's very much an area I think that organisations are already thinking about, but is an area probably where the impact of the programme could be achieved if more reach could be achieved with those audiences.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the other area was very much that we did see projects evolve from year one to year two. So having that as an area for the Arts Council to look at in terms of projects that get more than 1 year funding was definitely an area where projects seem to be able to evolve that little bit from their project in year two from what they've done in year one. So I think those are areas that would help improve the impact of the programme.
Brilliant, thank you. The next question is, I mean, there are always challenges to evaluating programs of this nature. I suppose in terms of their scale, the range of activity and engagement methods used, and also attribution. Um, what I suppose from your perspective, what were the most significant successes and challenges you faced as the program's evaluator?
Yeah, I think the first area of challenge is just this whole area of measurement in relation to well-being. Obviously,
Mhm.
we're working in a non-clinical setting,
Mhm.
so it's not the use of clinical tools is not appropriate. So that I think was the first challenge. I think how we overcame that was we didn't have a definition of well-being within our questionnaires, for example, and so projects weren't being forced to prescribe to a particular definition. The questions that we used that used the terms well-being were very much, we decided that we would leave it to the individual to respond in relation to the question and to allow them to essentially self-determine what they meant by well-being. And I think that was successful, and we had very good and articulate responses from the project around increase in some of the things that we would expect to make up well-being around self-esteem, self-worth, confidence, the things that we've been talking about already. So I think that was the first challenge. Um, I think the next challenge that we came across that's very much you have almost with every evaluation which is a program evaluation where you're looking at a range of project activity being funded. So, and that's designing an approach that's the best way and the most efficient way to collect data across a wide range of projects who may be very different in terms of the numbers of people they're engaging, the way they're engaging. And we know there was lots of different, as I've already said, creative approaches within this program. So trying to find, I guess, the approach that works best. So, and I think largely we were successful with that. We gathered data from project organisations themselves as well as from participants. And whilst that questionnaire approach is definitely not appropriate for all audiences, and our particular challenges with hard to reach audiences, maybe where English is not a first language, for example, or where it's just simply not possible for an individual to complete a questionnaire. We did also use case studies to try to get feedback from those projects. So I think we hopefully rose to that challenge as best we could. And then I think the other challenge, which again is a perennial one in both research and evaluation, is just achieving responses. So,
Mhm.
organizations doing what they need to do to get the responses in themselves, and then also individuals who are participating in the program to get feedback from them. I think there was over 1,000 young people engaged in the program, and we were happy with the response that we achieved through the questionnaire. And we saw an increase in the number of young people completing that questionnaire in in year two compared to year one. So we also saw the benefit of the work that we'd done from the start, I guess, in terms of communicating with organisations about the evaluation activity that was going to happen, why it was important, and also then helping them as much as possible to know what the links were and everything to share surveys and so on. So working with organisations to achieve the best response that you can when evaluation may not be the priority for them.
Mhm.
Project delivery is obviously the priority for them. So yeah, I think those are, I could probably go on, but those are some of the sort of main challenges and approaches that we took to rise to the challenge, hopefully.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much, Ruth, and very much for sharing the insights and the valuable learning that's come through the evaluation. I mean, for me, it's clear just how effective creative programs like this can be in supporting young people's mental health and well-being in a range of different creative settings. but obviously there are certain challenges when it comes to evaluation. So as a funding organisation, we're constantly looking to refine our methodologies to ensure that we reflect the outcomes and impacts of programs like this. So thank you for joining us today. If you have any further reflections on this discussion, please feel free to contact us at strategy@artscouncil-ni.org. All our evaluations, including this one, can be found on the resource section of the Arts Council's website. Thank you again, and goodbye.
Thank you.